Massive news for markets. CPI numbers just dropped and we saw the biggest decline in the lowest print since COVID. Stock futures and Bitcoin exploded on the news. And despite the threat of more conflict in Iran, I'm going to walk through two specific catalysts around why you should be bullish for Bitcoin right now. And at the same time, I'm going to show us clips from our favorite professor, Professor Jiang. And this time, he's got some shocking predictions for a global crash in 2027. Should we be fearful and worried, like Professor Jiang says? Or is this the time to double down on your conviction? We've got a lot to cover today. This is Dante Cook with Bitcoin Simply. Let's go. All right, if you haven't already done so, there's a ton of you that watch this channel every week, about 100,000 of you actually, that aren't actually subscribed to the channel. We drop fire news and content 7 days a week, and we help you to separate the signal from the noise. With that, let's get to our episode.
Here we go. This is our June release of the Consumer Price Index, expecting a headline number to be negative 0.1%. This is 4 times more negative, minus 0.4%. That would be the biggest negative drop that we've seen since 420.
This morning, CPI inflation fell to 3.5% below the expected number of 3.8%. Core inflation fell to 2.6 below expectations of 2.8. And the markets have taken the news bullishly. Everything is green today, including Bitcoin, which might break 64K. This is the biggest drop in CPI since April of 2020. That was when the world stopped completely because of this thing called COVID. But I'm not really buying the CPI numbers. They're cooked for policy reasons. We all know this. When you look at the real numbers, life is not less expensive for anybody. Since June of last year, fuel is up 43%, oil 28%, electricity 4%, clothes 4%. Every time I go to Chick-fil-A, we spend about $100, even though they say food away from home is only up 3.4%. Not buying it. Medical care up 2.7%. Not really. Not from my insurance premiums. And the only thing is down is used cars. So we know in reality the numbers are cooked. I also don't expect the numbers to stay down for long because there's more conflict happening in Iran right now. Trump's talking like they're going to take over the Strait of Hormuz, and there's been attacks that have been happening for the last several days. Oil's already up at $80 a barrel, and I expect it to go meaningfully higher. And so with that, this inflation catalyst, I don't really see as being one of my bullish reasons for why you should be excited about Bitcoin right now. Here's one thing that people are underlooking. Bitcoin is not just a nice to have asset for Bitcoin treasury companies, sovereign nations, or governments anymore. The United States just declared that Bitcoin is a national security asset. Listen to this hearing.
Over the past decade, Bitcoin has evolved from a fringe asset into a matter of national security. Iran has demanded Bitcoin as a toll for transit through the Strait of Hormuz. North Korean cyber actors have leveraged it in ransomware campaigns, and China is believed to be stockpiling substantial holdings as part of a strategic reserve. Just last week, Indo-PACOM Commander Admiral Paparo stated that Bitcoin has direct implications for power projection, and he noted that Indo-PACOM is operating a node on the Bitcoin network in furtherance of that mission. Secretary, do you share the opinion that Bitcoin is a tool to project power, and are there any department-wide initiatives to ensure the U.S. secures a strategic advantage in Bitcoin and combats China's digital authoritarianism?
I guess my short answer would be yes and yes. Long an enthusiast of Bitcoin and crypto potential, and a lot of the things we're doing, enabling it or defeating it, are classified efforts that are ongoing inside our department, which do provide us a lot of leverage in a lot of different scenarios.
I appreciate that, and I share your views.
When asked about classified documents, Hogseth answered yes and yes about Bitcoin being a deterrent against China taking over the digital asset space, and also talking about Bitcoin as a strategic asset for national security initiatives. And this may be why Congress, President Trump, Scott Bessent are all urging for them to get the Clarity Act passed, which we know a revised bill is going to the Senate floor as early as this week. With an August 7th deadline, the Clarity Act and trillions of dollars in capital moving into this new asset class is at the finish line. Here's what Senator Lummis had to say about it this morning.
Well, it's taken us virtually every day for the last 10 months to get this bill in the condition it's in today, and we're ready. So we will be introducing in the next few days. We're going to be in session now for 4 straight weeks. It's very important that we get this bill across the finish line before the August recess begins, so we can make the markets aware of the stability that will be provided to them if they remain onshore in the United States to do business. This is a pivotal time for the industry, and we want to meet their needs. We also want to meet the needs of law enforcement with regard to preventing illicit finance and provide consumer protections. We think we've accomplished that goal with this bill. It's been arduous, but we're ready for prime time.
So why, with all of these things on the horizon, are people still bearish on Bitcoin? Beats me. People are always looking for opportunities to buy a dip. Bitcoin's going to go lower. But who cares if it goes lower? The asset is going to be meaningfully higher 5 years from now than it is today. So who cares if it's 40, 50, 60K? I'm with Jordy Visser on this one.
My belief is that over the course of the next year, we are near the bottom end of the range of Bitcoin. And see how I said that, near? Could we go to 50? Yeah. Could we go to 45? Yeah. Do I think we'll be over 100 a year from now? Yeah. So what do I care whether I buy something at 60 or whatever? Yes, my percentage gain will be better, but if we're above 100, I don't care.
10 years from now, you're going to be putting out tweets like Peter Schiff, who finally admitted that he regrets not buying Bitcoin when he first learned about it. You can continue to write it off as an asset that's not important. But all of the rails, all of the capital flows, all of the e-commerce, all of the payments, all of the settlements are moving towards digital assets. And there's only one sovereign, decentralized digital asset that sovereign nations and governments can't control, and that the United States has a strategic advantage on and a head start on above every other nation right now. Ledn is the leader in Bitcoin-backed loans. They've been issuing loans to allow you to borrow against your Bitcoin with no capital gain since 2018. They've done so for tens of thousands of people all across the world. Dollars get into your account in less than 6 hours. The application takes just 2 minutes. You post your Bitcoin collateral and you can borrow up to 50% of that value. Don't sell your best asset for an asset that is losing value. Use Ledn. Use the QR code in the description to get started. And so despite positive CPI prints, it being called a strategic asset for our military, or even the Clarity Act getting passed, there are people that are going to be out there that will continue to be negative on Bitcoin. People are just negative in general because negativity gets more views, but it doesn't pay to be negative. One person who's consistently negative and is a huge influencer online right now is Professor Jiang, this anonymous internet character with no actual students, who every 2 weeks comes out with a new doom and gloom prediction. Here's his 2027 doom and gloom prediction for the global economy.
So if we're sitting here in Beijing a year from now, what do you think that we're going to be talking about in regards to the Iran war? How do you think this in the next, if you can give a prediction, in the next 12 months?
Yeah, so I think a year from now, things will be a lot worse for the global economy. So rather than us talk about the Iran war, we might be talking about the economy, how the global economy has collapsed. So there's been quite a lot of movement that suggests that the global economy is heading towards collapse. The thing that I've been watching these past few days is the Japanese have canceled the yen carry trade. I'm not sure if you're familiar with what that is, the yen carry trade. So what the yen carry trade is this: because of deflation in the Japanese economy, the Bank of Japan has been trying to print as much money as possible to create liquidity in the economy. So what they've been doing is they've been lending money to Japanese corporations and banks at zero interest.
Correct.
But because these are companies and they're only interested in profit, what they do is they take this money and then buy US Treasuries, which pays 5% interest, right? And this is what's called the yen carry trade. And if you think about it, it is this massive liquidity from Japan to the United States. So it's really Japan subsidizing the American economy.
Correct.
And this has what's allowed for, huge increases in the stock market, huge increases in the American economy. But because of this war in Iran, because of this overall economic malaise in Japan, the Japanese yen has been under a lot of pressure. And so the only way to relieve this pressure is for the Bank of Japan to raise interest rates. But if you raise interest rates, that forces the repatriation of capital from the United States back into Japan. You cancel the yen carry trade.
Right.
And so in the long term, this means problems for the Japanese economy, but it also means that eventually the American economy the bubble will burst. Okay. And right now there are two major bubbles in the American economy. They are the private credit bubble and they are the AI bubble. And actually both are interrelated. And so the AI bubble, it's completely propped up by liquidity from overseas, primarily from Japan, from the GCC. As we know, the GCC is under a lot of pressure because of this war. They're not able to export oil. Japan is also under a lot of pressure because they take this oil and transform it into manufactured goods to export around the world. Right? So the entire global economy is now under a lot of stress. And so we're seeing a lot of very powerful institutions like the Bank of International Settlements come out and say the AI bubble is about to burst, which means, okay, and this is really important, they're about to engineer a financial crisis in America, right? They're about to pop the bubble, in which case people's attention turned away from the war in Iran and towards economic collapse around the world. And so that's what we'll be talking about in a year's time. How in a year's time, you'll have massive unemployment, you have stock market collapse around the world, you'll have companies going bankrupt, it'll be very expensive to fly, there'll be energy lockdowns all around the world, and that I think will be the big story of 2027.
This is the same guy who said that Bitcoin is controlled and was created by the CIA, and someone who says that Bitcoin can be found on dedicated servers.
So the moment people recognize that this is a CIA operation, people won't put their money into blockchain. People won't put their money into Bitcoin. They'll be like, I mean, why would I do that? You have to ask yourself this question: where are the blockchain servers located? Right? Because I imagine if you're able to control the hardware, you can also control the software. I don't care what they tell me about open source and all that. I want to know where the databases are, where the servers are physically.
Professor, I hate to break it to you. Bitcoin in the protocol is everywhere and nowhere at the same time. The Bitcoin blockchain is managed through consensus. The machines who maintain the code, the nodes, and are doing the mining are all across the world. They could be run in this office. They could be run in people's offices all across the world. And we know that because someone running a BitAxe, a $200 piece of hardware, just won the latest block. This guy probably forgot it was plugged into the wall in his basement. And this is the magic of Bitcoin and why it can't be stopped. And like that guy who had a BitAxe who mined a Bitcoin block, you too can run your own node. You too can run your own Bitcoin mining machine. You too can have your own wallet. You too can be a sovereign individual. You can work with the team at the Bitcoin Way to teach you exactly what steps you need to take to be fully sovereign, to be fully unbankable and fully bankable at the same time. How to manage your own keys. How to pass assets down to future generations. Schedule a free meeting with the team at thebitcoinway.com/simplybitcoin. It's funny that people continue to call Bitcoin volatile when you have stocks like IBM, the stalwart, crashing 20% on its latest earnings call where it barely missed, but it said that it misappropriated capital in the CapEx expenditure for AI. We should have known that it was going to crash when we saw that Jim Cramer was bullish on it. The real reason to be bullish on Bitcoin isn't because that the poly market says that a Fed rate hike is now an 8% probability for the month of July. These short-term movements don't matter. It's because over the long term, Bitcoin pays you to be bored. Bitcoin pays you to spend less than you earn. Bitcoin is a fixed supply asset in an ever-expanding capital universe. You need to be consistent and you need to not sell out. Listen to this clip from Jack Mallers.
And you can see that if you hike interest rates, then the expense of the debt goes skyrocketing. So you quite literally cannot do what they're saying they want to do. So they're trapped. There's only one way out of this. And I can say it in so many different ways, but the dollar has to get debased. The debt has to be monetized. Inflation has to commence. It is what it is for the math to work. Unless, to Luke's point, you think that these guys are willing to destroy the United States and Western civilization as we know it, which is also an option. I don't think they're going to win the next election. I think whoever runs on a campaign of I'm going to keep printing money and giving you free shit and making your life feel cozy and manipulating metrics so that you don't really notice, I think that person's going to keep winning elections. But they can try and put us through extreme austerity. Bitcoin will still win, and it will just be, a much more painful path for everybody, but that's fine too. And so anyways, just to kind of round it out, where does that leave Bitcoin? Again, I didn't have too much time to go through all the nuts and bolts of some of the data I look at. Hopefully next week I'll have plenty of time. But to keep it simple, I love this tweet from Ansel, who's OG Bitcoiner. I recommend giving him a follow. I've been following him for a long time. I mean, man, he's been in Bitcoin at least as long as I have. And this tweet, I just resonated with it immediately. He said, Bitcoin's doing fine. Boring, but fine. And that's kind of, as my dad always says, don't let it scare you out. Don't let it wear you out. Yeah, Bitcoin's choppy. It's boring. You're going to think, oh man, the bear market's over. Here we go. And then you'll find another low. And then at the low, you'll see everyone, here comes everybody. It's going to 40K, 30K, 20K, 10K, and then it bounces again. You zoom out and Bitcoin's been at the same price since February. It's just chopping you around, whipping you around, wearing you out, boring you out, scaring you out. You got to just earn more than you're spending. Breathe, stay humble, stack sats. It's testing your identity. It's testing your conviction. But from the looks of the charts, Ansel's chart dates back to 2020, and it looks normal. It looks like we're getting some bullish divergence, meaning prices are getting lower, but on less momentum. It's a sign that sellers are exhausted.
It's boring, but sellers are exhausted. And just like real estate, there aren't going to be many more sellers in the future. Only renters, people who want to borrow from your precious property and assets. Like real estate, Bitcoin will be too expensive to afford for people who didn't get in early. The future is clear and it's playing out in front of us. We get distracted from all the short-term things and headlines and news stories that come up on our feeds. Over the long term, it's a sovereign asset that pays you to stay humble and stack sats. One of the ways you can continue to stay humble and stack sats is through SAS mining. They are the leaders in Bitcoin mining. You give them your money, they buy you a state-of-the-art machine, plug it into cheap, 100% clean, free, renewable electric energy sources, and send sats straight to your wallet. Stack sats by more than just buying, but through Bitcoin mining, and trust the experts in SAS mining, the leaders. Use the QR code to get started. This is Dante Coco Bitcoin Simply. Happy stacking.